Hello and welcome to News Central TV. My name is Mazino Appeal. We'll bring you the top stories coming up in today's bulletin. Federal government finalizes plans to sell a 753 units, that's 753 units, housing estate links to ex-CBN Governor Emefiele to low and middle-income Nigerians. Also, Federal Capital Territory Administration to begin repossession of 4,794 land titles from 26th of May 2025. Also coming up, hundreds of Libyan protesters flood streets of Tripoli demanding resignation of Prime Minister Libya. Details coming up now. Now let's start by telling you that President Bola Tinubu insists his administration's economic reforms are yielding positive results, despite the hardship it's inflicting on Nigerians. The president says fuel subsidy funds have been redirected towards critical infrastructure projects, healthcare and education initiatives. He acknowledged that the reforms are unpopular but bold and necessary, as well as part of a broader strategy to recalibrate Nigeria's economy and lay the groundwork for sustainable growth. The president revealed that his commitment to navigating the complexities of economic reform underscores his determination to fulfill his promise of lifting millions of Nigerians out of poverty, even as he confronts the daunting challenges that lie ahead. To further discuss this, I'm joined by Anyekin Joseph, public policy enthusiast. Joseph, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Good to have you again.
Hi, Mazino. Good to have you. Thank you very much.
Now, President Tinubu's administration says fuel subsidy funds are being redirected towards infrastructure, healthcare, and also education. What are your thoughts on the trade-offs involved in this decision, particularly considering the immediate hardship faced by Nigerians?
Well, thanks for that question, Mazino. I really appreciate it. It is absolutely clear. It is absolutely clear that the president may be thinking quite theoretically about his plans. And he has the right to think so, quite frankly, because he has his vision. And there are indicators that he's looking at that gives him a level of assurance that his plans are happening. However, there's another perspective of impacts and effects on people, aka outcomes. And he needs to find a way to get to middle ground. And in a scenario where it's increasingly difficult for people to share their thoughts and opinion, he may never get the benefits of knowing what people really think and how his policies are affecting people. I want to be a bit more specific. Ideally, when you redistribute windfall of currency devaluation, you imagine that the leaders at the subnational and even micro levels share passion that you do and are deploying those resources to ensure that they are solving problems as against spending money. So the real concern here is he listening to people? Is he getting effective feedback? And from his perspective, he probably thinks a lot is happening. But when you listen to people across the country, different demography, different disciplines, it's not as he thinks. Thank you.
Okay, so Nigerians are facing significant challenges across various sectors. These include security, education, and also healthcare. So given the president's emphasis on infrastructure and also healthcare and education, how do you think these sectors can be further strengthened to address issues like insecurity and inadequate healthcare and also poor education as well? You can remember JAM and WAEC.
Yes, I do. Mazino, there is something that is still being researched in public policy sphere. It is the concept of good faith lack of capacity. The reality is, it's not enough that you're passionate about something and then you are in office and it becomes then difficult for you to effect change. You may be passionate, you may have the zeal, but you do not fully understand the breadth, depth, and the complexities around the issues you are trying to resolve. And when you find people in offices, they really sound passionate, but we're not seeing steps that are taken that lead to solutions. And a lot can be done, quite frankly. But one of the things that the president needs is people who can competently communicate the milestones being achieved on the way to solving problems. I imagine, and I do have great sympathy for him, because when you find or you see spokespersons on TV, they are too political to be fact-based to talk about milestones and how we can progress. So, for instance, in the health sector, the president has a minister that is taking steps at having integrated approach to improving healthcare in Nigeria. They are taking steps to ensure, for instance, that we do not have silos of interventions, that interventions are integrated, and there is collaboration in trying to solve a long-term problem. And unfortunately, that is not expertly communicated by the people who speak on behalf of the president. When you look at infrastructure, again, theoretically, a lot of money has been deployed into infrastructure projects across the country. But a particular infrastructure project is making every progress that the government may be making seem inadequate, and that's the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. That project, although it's supposed to be impactful and fundamentally changes the landscape of Nigeria when you look at it from a bird's eye view, but because of the controversy that came with it, every other infrastructure project is seen from that perspective, and there's a lot of repair that needs to go into that. And when you now talk about insecurity and education, it is incredibly embarrassing. For instance, today's government, that even when they are talking strategy and policy up, when it comes to implementation and impact, the government is falling way below even its own expectations. Because when you look at the scandals at JAMB, and the fact that innovation and creativity is not a bug within our education, it is a feature of it, you can begin to see the enormity of the problem. And I use one instance to buttress this point. The federal government released 50 billion naira to the academic and non-academic community of our educational institutions. And you can see already how that singular disbursement has created so much animosity within that system. And it is important that the systems that we are looking at to lead the political class to the solutions we hope to get, they themselves are innovative and they see themselves as the light. And this complexity are the things that better communication, expert communication, great understanding of the issues, the complexities that are being resolved that go to the solution need to be carefully communicated. At the moment, I don't think the president has the team that help unpack those complexities and the progress that's being made.
Anyekan, the president says these economic reforms are meant to lift millions out of poverty, but right now it feels like the opposition is actually, or rather the opposite is actually happening. Definition on exactly who poor is. So who's actually benefiting from these reforms, and what needs to change so that they work for the average Nigerian?
Oh, we know absolutely who the poor beneficiaries of the president's interventions are. We know, let's not kid ourselves. We know that every federal lawmaker has, almost significant increases in their constituency budgets. We now know that, if you go to the Corporate Affairs Commission, businesses are being registered to execute a lot of the projects that these humongous sums are targeted at. But there's a mighty difference between spending money and solving problems. And this is something that we have to talk about a bit more. We see, and earlier, you had someone that came to talk about budget planning. We see that the government is spending money, but we do not see that there are solutions. And in talking about solutions, we're talking about impact, we're talking about how lives are changed. And unfortunately, the multi-dimensional poverty that most Nigerians feel has not changed. And that is something that we need to pay attention to. So that because you are spending money is not synonymous to solving problems. So yes, politicians are getting richer, contractors may be getting richer, and the people within that, political economy sphere are definitely benefiting from the windfall that we're seeing. Sadly, it doesn't translate into better healthcare, better markets, better, even where you have improving infrastructure. The infrastructure in itself is not where the people benefit, but it does, in a way, improve the overall existence. And that is what I think from our perspective as enthusiasts, from the side of the media and civil society, we need to be able to make it clear to the government that although you're spending money, it does not translate into problem solving.
So how much faith do you have in policy implementation? Do you think the average Nigerian also has such faith? What are your views on how the government can improve the implementations of these of its economic reforms?
Implementation, I think, is the third leg of a tripod approach to policy. So there's the design side, where incredible research and reliable data is the basis for defining what the problem is. And then in preferring solution, there is a broad stakeholder engagement that with the advent of technology and all sorts of other advantages, these types of engagements can happen so that a number of quick suggestions can come up in terms of solutions. And then the idea of people with the capacity and ethical strength to implement. And it is at that, when we have the first two, then we have the third leg that talks about the people who have the capacity and the ethical strength to implement. That is when you begin to see people unpack projects into milestones so that when people always have hope. Hope is a critical thing. And this government has tagged itself the government of renewed hope. But you are not showing people the steps you are taking to that El Dorado. And that is something that this government needs to do. Implementation is only a third, of the other two things. And sadly, it doesn't appear that we do know enough about the problems we're trying to solve. We understand how we want to do it, and we have the right people to do it.
Aniek and Joseph, thank you very much for giving us your opinion on the matter here this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Muzina. Always a pleasure.
Meanwhile, the Nigerian government has finalized plans to sell a massive estate linked to former CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele to low and middle income earners, or rather Nigerians. The property, recovered by the EFCC in December 2024, comprises 753 housing units and spans over 150,000 square meters. It's the largest asset recovery since the Commission's founding in 2023. Now, on May 20, EFCC Chairman Ola Olukoyede handed the property over to the Minister of Housing, Ahmed Dangiwa. The estate remains under construction, but the government promises affordable access under President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda. Sales will be conducted via the ministry's portal with flexible payment plans, including mortgage and rent-to-own options. Now, in a related development, the Federal Capital Territory Administration says that it will commence the taking over of 4,794 land titles revoked in March this year. The special advisor to the FCT Minister on Public Communications and Social Media, in company of the Director of Lands of the FCTA and the Director of the FCT Development Control, spoke to newsmen in Abuja, saying the revoked lands form part of the 8,375 land plots owing ground rents from 1 year to 43 years, which were earlier flagged by the administration.
On March 18, 2025, we informed you of the revocation of 4,794 land titles in the central area, Gariki 2, Gariki 1 and 2, Wuse 1 and 2, Asokoro, Maitama and Gusape districts. These 4,794 properties were among the total of 8,375 land titles on which ground rent was not paid from 1 year to 43 years. The titles of the properties in default were revoked in March this year. Therefore, from Monday, May 26, 2025, the FCTA will begin to exercise its lawful rights of taking possession of these revoked properties.
Well, I'll take a short break, and when we get back, we've got more on the other side. Stay with us. Welcome back. A wife of Nigeria President Oluremi Tinubu says some selected 250 persons with disabilities in Nigeria will receive the sum of 200,000 naira each as grants to boost their businesses under her Renewed Hope Initiative project. Speaking at a social investment program in Umuahia, the wife of the Vice President, Nana Shatima, who represented the president's wife, also cautions the beneficiaries of the food items against using the kind gesture for financial gains. Some beneficiaries also spoke on the impact of the program in their lives.
The next states to benefit from the food outreach scheme are Enugu and Kaduna states. I am pleased to share with you all that since inception in 2023, the Renewed Hope initiative has made significant progress in our efforts to support our people, particularly women and youth, towards building a better life for their families.
So I go to Lobodo. So Obi the motor at least always I gave one and one.
Okay, but to Tumpa, even Merino. Nina, all of that on email actually, because this, or this, your Bola, Manda, hold the Manda Honadi.
To the aviation sector now. The 7 African countries of Cabo Verde, the Gambia, Ghana, Guinea, Libya, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone, also known as the Banjul Accord Group, have called for increased air safety and also the speedy implementation of the single African air transport market. This was as they met in Abuja for the 18th plenary session of the group, hosted by the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, where they say that this will boost their national economies, promote integration, and facilitate trade. Ahmed here reports.
The Nigeria's aviation sector has performed extremely
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen.
In attendance are aviation experts from the 7 member countries of the Banjul Accord Group. The meeting, the 18th plenary session of the group, which held in Abuja, presents an opportunity to review aviation across Africa, its challenges and opportunities for growth. A representative from Nigeria's Civil Aviation Authority informed those present that Nigeria's aviation sector has performed extremely well and is on course for growth.
We currently have 24 operational airports, which accommodate 28 active domestic airlines. And within this domestic airline, you have the scheduled and non-scheduled, as well as 26 international carriers operating under 85 bilateral air services agreement. And it is more profound that our passenger traffic record recorded a robust recovery in 2023, reaching 22.1 million passengers, which actually indicate Nigeria's resilience and potential for sustained growth post-pandemic.
Experts present here say deliberations have been wide and far-reaching, reviewing the state of the aviation sector across the sub-region.
The major important outcome of this conference is the institutionalization of the BAG Secretariat, the approval of the agreements for BAG Bagasso and Bagaya, and most important, to identify alternative ways of financing these 3 organizations.
We have also deliberated on funding that all the people that are owing in arrears should pay up their contribution to the BAG states to be able to make sure it's seamlessly done. And as you can see at the conclusion, they are all happy that they have a lot of takeaway to go back home and go back to their upper legislature to make sure that things are done, their contributions are paid, and then all the resolutions that we have decided and taken up will be implemented.
They add that resolutions reached will have tremendous effects on aviation safety and pricing.
The main impact, it will improve safety in the region. Ultimately also will benefit the passengers because we are looking for ways also to reduce the price of the tickets and also the security in the flights.
The draft agenda of the Banjul Accord Group Secretariat was adopted after the plenary. Member states were tasked to urgently accelerate the implementation of the single African air transport market belonging to the Banjul Accord Group across their aviation sectors. They say this will boost economic integration and facilitate trade. In Abuja for News Central, I am Ahmed.
The Executive Secretary of the National Sugar Development Council, Kamar Bakrin, says that over 7 trillion naira investment is needed to achieve the nation's sugar master plan. Bakrin made known during a public hearing at the House of Representatives on a bill to amend the Council's Act, saying adequate legislative reform is needed to ensure that the sugar industry achieves its full potentials. He added that the industry can create thousands of jobs, boost foreign exchange earnings, and drive developmental projects across the country.
The vision of the Nigerian Sugar Master Plan is clear. It is to, among other things, create 100,000 high-quality jobs, to drive the development of rural infrastructure, and to achieve savings of at least $1 billion annually in foreign exchange savings. To realize this, we require $4.5 billion in investments.
We remain fully prepared to support any amendment to the NSDC Act that aligns with national economic policies and sustainable industrial development.
The enactment of this legislation would no doubt enhance competitiveness and increasing the sector's contribution to Nigeria's economy.
Nigeria as a nation would not live in isolation, and therefore we must do everything to ensure that we provide legislation.
Coming up, hundreds gather in Johannesburg for Solidarity March. We'll bring you the details after. Welcome back. Now we head to South Africa, where Africans from across the continent who live and work in South Africa have gathered in Johannesburg for a solidarity march to mark Africa Day. The 25th of May is dedicated to celebrating the continent's diversity, rich heritage, and the shared journey of its people. News Central's Bongani Sisiba is at the march, and we cross over to her right now. Bongani, hi, good afternoon. Do tell us exactly what's happening there on location in South Africa.
Good afternoon, Mazino, and also good afternoon to our viewers. It's a beautiful afternoon here where Africans have come to.
We seem to have lost connection with Bongani, but we will try to reconnect with her and we will bring you happenings there in South Africa currently on Africa Day as they embark on a solidarity march. Moving on. Now, in West Africa, around 100 demonstrators gathered in Dakar, Senegal, to call on the government to introduce harsher penalties for homosexuality. The protests highlights ongoing societal tensions in the West African nation, where same-sex relations are already criminalized under a law punishing acts against nature, with up to 5 years in prison. Protesters urged lawmakers to adopt stricter measures, aligning with a push by a local organization currently lobbying Parliament for legal reform. While homosexuality remains heavily stigmatized in Senegal, the initiative has sparked concern among human rights advocates who warn that tougher laws could further marginalize the LGBTQ+ community. No official government response has been issued yet regarding the demonstrators' demands or the legislative proposal.
On est venu ici pour combattre l'homosexualité comme on l'avait fait l'année passée avec le président Macky Sall. Bon, on a combattu pour que l'homosexualité dans ce pays, on ne le tolère pas.
Parce que l'État qui est là actuellement au pouvoir, il nous avait promis de criminaliser l'homosexualité une fois au pouvoir. Mais aujourd'hui, ils sont à 1 an au pouvoir et jusque-là, on ne voit pas d'élection par rapport à l'homosexualité. Donc nous, c'est ce que nous demandons. Parce que si vous voyez aujourd'hui tout ce monde, Donc c'est pour dire non à l'homosexualité. Donc tout ce que nous demandons aujourd'hui, c'est que l'État assume ses responsabilités, que l'État prenne toutes ses responsabilités. Donc il n'a qu'à criminaliser l'homosexualité. C'est une promesse qu'ils avaient faite. Et jusque-là, nous attendons.
Ils ont visité tous les foyers. Ils allaient abolir. Ce n'est pas le moment de se débattre.
In North Africa, for the second consecutive Friday, hundreds of demonstrators flooded the streets of Tripoli, demanding the resignation of Libya's UN-recognized government of national unity. The protests, driven by growing public frustration, are aimed squarely at Prime Minister Abdelhamid Dbeibeh and his administration. Citizens cite deepening political gridlock, deteriorating security, and worsening living conditions as reasons for their unrest. Chants and banners filled the capital as demonstrators called for new leadership and urgent reforms. The latest protests highlight the mounting pressures on the transitional government to deliver on its promises and steer Libya towards stability. Tensions remain high, with observers warning that the unrest could escalate if demands are not addressed promptly.
الشعب الليبي يقرر في مصيره في هذا المكان وقال كلمته لا لحكومات جديدة ولا لكيانات سياسية جديدة تضعف الدولة الليبية. نبوا انتخابات المجلس الرئاسي أمام الآن موقف تاريخي لينقذ ليبيا.
اليوم نشوف التظاهر السلمي داخل الميدان الحقيقة شيء إيجابي وشيء مفرح نطالبوا فيه بإسقاط الحكومة وأن نشوفوا حكومة أخرى ممكن تسعى في بناء الوطن ونتمنوا اختفاء الأجسام الأخرى واختفاء الأجسام اللي هي الميليشيات والمظاهر المسلحة اللي موجودة داخل العاصمة.
جينا من جميع المناطق، جينا للميدان الشهداء طرابلس للمطالبة بأبسط حقوقنا اللي هي تأسيس انتخابات رئاسية جديدة وبرلمانية وإسقاط الحكومة وإسقاط جميع.
Earlier, we tried to bring you moments from South Africa on Africa Day as people are on the streets for a solidarity march. We also have News Central correspondent Bongani Sisiba, who is on location to tell us, give us details about the moment. Bongani, once again, welcome. Good afternoon. Could you please give us details about the happenings there in South Africa?
The land that is ours. Everybody's in this land. And
yes, Mazino, there was a march from the Johannesburg CBD where citizens of Africa have come together, those who are living in South Africa, just to have that solidarity of the 25th of May. We know that the 25th of May is a day that Africans come together to celebrate the day, not only celebrate about not only the celebrations of what is going on, but also the unity and the prosperity of Africans, what we are doing as Africans, our heritage, our culture. So it was just a coming together of Africans living in South Africa, having that solidarity. We know that in Africa a lot of things are happening. We have wars, we have poverty, but that day is meant for us to celebrate, but also not forget to solidarity with those that are going through a lot in Africa, those that are in Sudan, in DRC. But let me just bring in someone here, one of the people who are marchers here, just to speak about this day. Your name, please, and what does Africa Day mean to you?
Thank you. Happy Africa Day. Today we are glad to be celebrating such a historic day. My name is Mzwelen Vilagati. I'm from the Swaziland Liberation Movement, a leader from the Youth League. I'm the Secretary General there. But I'm here as part of the Justice for Swaziland campaign, which consists of the organizations in Swaziland. What I can say is that today we are celebrating Africa Day, but we can't celebrate, we can't say we are celebrating after the struggles that we see in Africa. So Africa is still not yet free, Africa is still not yet united. one can say what I've noted what is happening in Swaziland. King Mswati has been brutalizing people, has been killing people there with impunity, and SADC has been not assisting us as Swaziland. They've not been stepping in there in Swaziland to make sure that they stabilize the situation in Swaziland. So that really shows us that Africa is not united as far, and we see borders in Swaziland. I have to go and put a passport before I cross to South Africa, which is really nonsensical and can't be justifiable, because we're just living beings, we're just one people, and I come to South Africa, someone say I must go to Swaziland. Why? Because I'm black. But they allow white people to come and stay in South Africa, but they can't allow black people like Zimbabweans, they can't allow black people like Maswati. They intervene on external matters, but they can't intervene on a matter that is in Swaziland, where King Mswati is killing and brutalizing our people. We are really sad today, but we are celebrating that we are Africans, we are still alive, but we are calling for unity, we are calling for us to be emancipated as Africa, to harvest in our very own economy where we stay, to make sure that the situation is stabilized, because you cannot be free when Mozambicans are not free, you cannot be free when South Africans are not free, you cannot be free when Mswati in the next door is doing as he pleases. So that is all we have to say. As Swaziland, we are still living under oppression, the last absolute monarchy that is there in Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you. As an African, what does Africa Day mean to you?
Good afternoon to everyone. Zoeli Lamin here. Africa Day for me means Africans should all be free and enjoy the fruits of what our continent brings. So we've had a lot of time to deliberate and to adjust and correct some of the issues we've had in Africa, but for some reason our people are still not benefiting from the fruits of Africa and what Africa should be.
Thank you, May. What does Africa Day mean to you? We are celebrating Africa Day tomorrow.
Yes, thank you very much for this chance. My name is Kwezi Nguka. Africa Day to me means that is a continent that is for indigenous people, but it has their ingenuity has been taken away by the imperialists and the capitalists, and they are looting the resources from Africa. So as Africans, we must enjoy our natural God-given resources. For me, Africa must unite and grab and demand what belongs to her. So this is the day, and we are happy that Africans are still recognizing that they are Africans.
Thank you so much. Those are some of the African citizens that are gathered here just to show just to give that solidarity to some of the African countries that are suffering, to give solidarity to some of the African citizens that are in poverty, but above all, just united in peace, celebrating our culture, our heritage as Africans. It's now back to you in the studio, Mazino.
The visuals that we have just seen. Thank you, Bongani. Welcome back. Now, a federal judge has temporarily halted the Donald Trump administration's ban on Harvard University's ability to enroll international students. U.S. District Judge Alison Baroff ruled hours after the nation's oldest and wealthiest college filed suit on Friday. Harvard argued that the revocation of its certification in the Student and Exchange Visitor Program was clear retaliation for its refusal of the government's ideologically rooted policy demands. Baroff is the same judge considering a separate lawsuit from Harvard challenging the administration's freeze of $2.65 billion in federal funding. The latest complaint by the nation's oldest and wealthiest institution of higher education argues the decision to drop the school from the Department of Homeland Security's SEVP system violates the law. Meanwhile, a federal judge has temporarily halted the Trump administration's decision to revoke Harvard University's ability to enroll international students. Also, Pope Leo, I beg your pardon, a bit of a mix-up there. Now, to discuss this matter, which I've just told, we're being joined by Ejike Okpa, Global Affairs Analyst and also Harvard alumnus himself. Ejike, you're welcome. Good to have you here. Let's talk about your institution, the one you went to then. As Harvard alumnus who benefited from the university's international student program, how do you reconcile your support for the administration's policies with the recent decision to revoke Harvard's ability to enroll international students, much like yourself, which could have impacted students there?
Good morning or good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I went to Harvard as an American. I didn't go to Harvard as an international student. So, but the point here is, the Trump administration has come and said, hey, Harvard, you have to change your ways and do certain things because of the federal money you receive. They receive almost $600 and something million annually for research and grants. And it's telling because, anytime you have a federal money, mingle with your own money, then you have to agree to the terms and conditions. I think it'll be interesting to see what the lawsuit, what the judge is going to say in this, because it's going to set a precedent, as to how universities receive money. If you receive that money, then you have to abide by what the rules are. It's the Department of Homeland Security that is saying this. I think the point that is being lost here is foreign students coming into American universities and using that platform opportunity to protest either against American policies or for the things that are not of interest to Americans. I think when you come in as a foreign student, then you have to abide by those rules. Maybe this will help universities to write conditions. When you come in here, you're not coming to protest what is going on in your own native country or policies you don't like about America. You do that, you can go to the embassy of your country or the embassy of the country you don't like what they're doing at protest. But when you're on the campus that is federally funded or receiving federal money, you have to abide by some rules. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen. And everybody's watching. There are some universities now that are not even open to taking foreign students because they don't know, what rules they're going to say they are violating. Harvard is the premier university, is a branded university. And so what happens to it or what it does sets a precedent.
Well, Ejike, the Department of Homeland Security accused Harvard of fostering anti-Semitism, leading to the controversy over international students' enrollment. So given your experience at Harvard, do you believe the university has a problem with anti-Semitism? And how should institutions balance free speech with creating a safe environment for all students?
Well, freedom is not very free. When we say, we have freedom in America, it comes with terms and conditions. So if you remember, the first Black woman to be Harvard president had to, resign for issues about this anti-Semitism and some other things alleged, that was alleged against her. It shows premier universities have taken the liberal approach to things. They allow things that normally you shake your head as a common sense citizen and say, why are they doing this? Our institutions is where you go to learn and you get to get inspired, but it shouldn't be a ground for, especially foreign students. I didn't come to America as a foreign student, but the point I'm trying to make is that when you go to other countries, you have to respect their laws. In Nigeria, for example, will not take it if Cameroon, foreign students coming to University of Nigeria, University of Lagos, and start to protest, the federal government, you're going to react. So that is what we try to establish here. Come to learn, and if for whatever reason you don't like it, you don't have to attend the Harvard. You don't have to attend a university in America. You can attend the one in your own home country. But when you come here, come in and respect the boundaries. And then if you become a citizen, of course, you are entitled to a whole lot of other things. But as a foreign student, there are limitations and restrictions on your status. And when you violate those conditions, you're going to be expelled and the university is going to start to be punished. So Harvard will come out of this. Harvard is very wealthy. They have an endowment of 50-something billion and total asset in the 70-something billion. How much they get from the federal government is very small compared to what they do on their own. But the thing is, when you get the federal money tangled with your money, then you're going to have to abide by the federal rule. I think that's what the test is going to be. Now, how much obedience are you going to have when you take a federal money?
All right, Ejike, I'm not going to let you go now, but I do have to go on a break. But I'm going to come back because I have a few more questions to ask you regarding the issues here. So do stay with us. And to the viewers, we'll be right back. Let's take a quick break. Welcome back, and still on international ban, where federal high judge has temporarily halted Trump's administration's decision to revoke Harvard University ability to enroll international students. We still have with us here Ejike Okwa, who is a global affairs analyst and also a Harvard alumnus. Ejike, thank you for keeping around. So I'm sure that you, even in your time at Harvard, met people who had to navigate the challenges of being international students at that institution. So what messages do you think this controversy sends to the prospective international students, particularly those from countries like Nigeria, about studying in the U.S. under this current administration?
Good question. Education shouldn't have any geographic boundary. You go to wherever you think you can get education in order to be useful to yourself, your community, and your country. So, when you come to America, I'm always somebody who said I respect the law of the person that I'm in their house. Just like if you invite me to your home, I have to respect it until I get to it. That's what I call legal status. When you come in as a foreign student, you are F1 visa, whatever the visa status is. Then when you regularize your stay, as you change your status, the next level will be your green card, and then you become a citizen. So you have to respect all those boundaries, and once you respect them, you are able to learn. When I came to America, I didn't go to Harvard. I went to Harvard 2005 and 2006, and I was already a citizen back then. So for foreign students that are coming in, are you coming in here to be a political activist, or are you coming in here to really get the education that your own parents or whomever is paying for you to go to school is funding you for? So those are the things individuals have to make. What has happened is in the past few years, because of the tension between Israel and Palestinians, you have seen people, who come in here and, they're flying flags all over the place and jumping on any opportunity they have to state their backgrounds. Go to the embassy of Israel or embassy of Palestine and do those things, or outside of the campus. Our campuses, should be a place of sanity, a place of, reasonable thinking, in such a way that you don't have to disrupt other students who are there to learn because of your own activist interest. And so what is going on is a test, like I said earlier, so that, we know the boundaries for foreign students. If the word says it foreign, you're a foreign student, you're not an American citizen, and don't cross that line and don't cross those issues, because you're going to get in trouble and then you're going to face deportation. There are other people that have been deported, have been processed for deportation because of the violation of their status as a foreign student.
Ejike Okpa, I want to say thank you very much for sticking around this long for my questions here on this matter. Thank you indeed.
Thank you for having me.
And that's all this hour. Thank you very much. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Federal government finalizes plans to sell a 753-unit housing estate linked to ex-CBN Governor Emefiele to low and middle income Nigerians. In the Federal Capital Territory Administration to begin repossession of 4,794 land titles from 26th of May 2025. Also, hundreds of Libyan protesters flood streets of Tripoli, demanding resignation of Prime Minister Deba. Now remember, you may send your eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp number on your screens now. And do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, StarTimes channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.